The morning sun rose over New Busan colony like any other day, casting golden light across the vast grain fields that stretched beyond the horizon. Hana Kim walked through the agricultural center checking the hydroponic systems that fed the entire settlement. At 19 years old, she had already earned her engineering certification and worked alongside her father, who managed the colony administration. The peaceful world had been humanity's home for 3 generations, and nothing ever disturbed the quiet rhythm of farm life. Mira Park sat in the medical clinic reviewing patient files on her tablet. The 22-year-old was in her final year of medical training and had come to New Busan to complete her practical studies. She enjoyed the slow pace compared to the busy hospitals on Earth and found satisfaction in treating the simple injuries and illnesses that came with agricultural work. The colony had only 8,000 residents and everyone knew each other by name. In the arts district, Sola Lee put finishing touches on a mural depicting the colony's founding. The 17-year-old had exceptional talent for both visual arts and strategic thinking, which made her popular among the younger colonists who often came to her for advice. Her latest work showed the first human ships landing on the planet 40 years ago, when the world was nothing but empty grasslands and scattered forests. Yuna Choi finished her morning communications check at the colony's main transmission center. The 25-year-old had served 5 years in Earth's military before retiring to the peaceful colony life. Her job involved maintaining contact with other human settlements and monitoring deep space signals for any signs of trouble. In 3 years of working the position, she had never received anything more concerning than shipping delays or weather warnings from nearby systems. The attack came without warning during the lunch hour, when most colonists were either eating or resting. Massive ships appeared in the sky like dark thunderclouds blotting out the sun. They moved with impossible silence, casting shadows across the fields as landing craft descended toward the settlement. The vessels were unlike anything in human design, with twisted organic curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and pulse with their own life. Vorthan warriors poured from the landing craft, wearing armor that looked more grown than manufactured. Commander Vextar led the ground forces with cold efficiency, born from countless similar operations across the galaxy. To the Vorthans, this was routine specimen collection from what they considered a primitive backwater species. Their intelligence. Reports described humans as simple agricultural creatures with limited technology and no significant military capability. The colonists ran in panic as energy weapons fired stunning beams that dropped people where they stood. The Vorthans moved through the settlement with practiced precision, targeting specific demographics according to their collection protocols. They showed no interest in the elderly or very young, but focused entirely on females between the ages of 15 and 30. Their scanners identified genetic markers and health indicators as they sorted through the stunned population. Hana Kim tried to reach her father's office when the attack began, but alien soldiers blocked her path. She turned toward the emergency shelters, but energy beams struck her down before she could take 10 steps. As consciousness faded, she saw other young women being dragged toward the alien ships while the rest of the colonists cowered in hiding, places that offered no real protection. Mira Park had been treating a patient with a broken arm when the clinic's walls exploded inward. Vorthan soldiers scanned the room with handheld devices before stunning both her and her patient. The aliens showed no concern for the medical equipment they destroyed, or the injured man left helpless on the examination table. They simply grabbed Mira and carried her toward their transport ship like a piece of cargo. Sola Lee heard the commotion from her art studio and immediately understood the tactical situation. She tried to organize an escape route through the building's back exit, but the aliens had surrounded the entire arts district. When she attempted to lead a group of younger students to safety, the Vorthans stunned them all with methodical precision. Sola's last coherent thought was analyzing the aliens' movement patterns and noting their obvious military training. Yuna Choi reached for the emergency transmitter when the first ships appeared, but alien jamming signals blocked all communications beyond the planet's atmosphere. Her military training kicked in as she tried to activate backup protocols, but the Vorthans had clearly studied human technology. They breached the communication center within minutes and stunned her before she could send any distress signals to other human settlements. The collection process took less than 2 hours. 47 human females were loaded into containment pods aboard the alien vessels, while the remaining colonists huddled in fear. Commander Vextar reviewed the collection manifest with satisfaction, noting that his forces had acquired excellent specimens representing various human subspecies and skill sets. The females would provide valuable research material for Vorthon scientists studying lesser species throughout the galaxy. The ships departed as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving behind a traumatized population and no trace of where the prisoners had been taken. The colonists emerged from hiding to find their communication systems destroyed and their leadership paralyzed by shock. Without faster-than-light communication, they had no way to contact Earth or other human settlements for help. They could only tend their wounds and hope someone would eventually notice that New Busan had gone silent. In the depths of space, the Vorthon vessels carried their human cargo toward the Empire's central research facilities. The prisoners remained unconscious in stasis pods while automated systems monitored their vital signs and recorded biological data. Commander Vextar filed his mission report describing the operation as routine, with no unexpected complications or resistance from the target species. The Vorthon Empire controlled nearly half of known galactic space and had conducted similar collection operations on hundreds of worlds. Their scientists maintained vast research facilities where they studied lesser species to better understand galactic biodiversity. The Empire viewed itself as the galaxy's supreme civilization, with both the right and responsibility to catalog and study all other forms of life. Chief Researcher Colvane received notification of the new human specimens with mild interest. His facility already housed creatures from dozens of different worlds, and humans represented just another data point in his ongoing studies. The research protocols were well established and would provide months of valuable scientific observation. Before the specimens were no longer useful, the transport ships approached the massive research station that orbited a dead star in unclaimed space. The facility stretched for hundreds of kilometers, containing laboratories, holding areas, and living spaces for thousands of alien prisoners. Automated systems prepared receiving areas for the new human arrivals, while research teams reviewed preliminary biological scans. None of the Vorthons realized they had made the greatest mistake in their empire's history. They had no understanding of human psychology or the bonds that connected human communities across vast distances. Their intelligence reports failed to mention humanity's protective instincts or their capacity for overwhelming violence when their people were threatened. The Empire was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world and why wise species avoided provoking creatures from such hostile environments. The human prisoners began waking up in alien holding cells while their captors prepared research protocols. Far away on Earth, the first distress signals were starting to reach military command centers. Admiral Tai Sato was reviewing routine reports when the priority alert came through his communication system. General Kai Nam was inspecting new ship construction when urgent messages began flooding his command network. The Vorthon Empire had just declared war on humanity without realizing it. 3 days had passed since the Vorthon ships disappeared into the void, leaving New Busan colony in shocked silence. The emergency beacon finally activated when colonist engineer Day Park managed to repair the damaged communication array using spare parts from agricultural equipment. The signal traveled through subspace toward the nearest human military outpost, carrying news that would change everything. Admiral Tae Sato was reviewing fleet deployment schedules aboard his flagship when the priority alert reached his command center. The message from New Busan was fragmented and filled with interference, but the core information was clear enough to send ice through his veins. 47 human civilians had been abducted by unknown alien forces and taken to an undetermined location somewhere in galactic space. The Admiral immediately ordered his entire battle group to New Busan at maximum speed, while sending emergency notifications to Earth Command and every human settlement within communication range. General Kai Nam received the alert while inspecting new destroyer construction at the Luna shipyards, and immediately began mobilizing colonial defense forces across human space. Dr. Rin Oh was pulled from her xenobiology research to provide expert analysis of the situation. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the captured human women were beginning to wake up inside the massive Vorthon research facility. Hana Kim opened her eyes to find herself in a transparent containment cell, barely large enough to stand upright. The walls hummed with energy, and beyond them, she could see similar cells stretching in rows toward a distant ceiling. Other human. Women were waking up around her while alien creatures she had never imagined moved through the corridors between the cells. Mira Park regained consciousness with her medical training immediately assessing her physical condition. The stun weapons had left her with a mild headache and some muscle weakness, but otherwise she appeared unharmed. She looked around the cell, noting the basic sleeping platform and waste facilities, while studying the energy barriers that kept her imprisoned. Her analytical mind began cataloging everything she observed for future reference. Sola Lee woke up and immediately began studying the facility's layout and security measures. Her artistic eye noted the architectural patterns while her tactical intelligence identified guard rotations and surveillance systems. She realized the aliens had made a mistake putting her where she could observe their operations, because now she could start mapping their weaknesses and planning possible escape routes. Yuna Choi came to consciousness with her military instincts. Fully alert despite the lingering effects of alien stunning technology, she quickly assessed the containment system and noted the sophisticated energy fields that would be nearly impossible to break from inside. However, her trained eye spotted something the aliens had missed during their hasty collection process, the small emergency transmitter still hidden in her jacket lining. The Vorthon research facility housed thousands of creatures from across the galaxy in a complex arrangement of laboratories and holding areas. Chief Researcher Cole Vane walked through the human section with scientific curiosity, noting the bipedal structure and relatively large brain capacity of the new specimens. His preliminary observations suggested these creatures might be more intelligent than initial reports indicated. Dr. Cole Vane had spent decades studying lesser species for the Empire and considered himself an expert on primitive civilizations. However, something about the humans struck him as different from previous subjects. Their eyes showed a level of awareness and intelligence that seemed inconsistent with their supposed technological limitations. He made notes for more detailed cognitive testing in the coming days. The facility operated under strict protocols designed to maintain scientific objectivity while ensuring specimen safety for extended research periods. The humans were provided with basic nutrition and living conditions while automated systems monitored their health and behavior patterns. The Vorthons had refined these procedures through centuries of operation and rarely encountered unexpected complications. Hana Kim quickly established herself as a leader among the human prisoners by organizing communication between cells and sharing information about their situation. She helped the younger women deal with fear and panic, while encouraging everyone to stay alert and gather intelligence. Her engineering background proved useful for understanding the alien technology that held them captive. Through careful observation and whispered conversations, the women learned they were not the only prisoners in the Kir facility. The research station held creatures from dozens of different worlds, including several species that appeared to be intelligent beings rather than simple animals. Some had been there for years, while others were recent arrivals like themselves. Mira Park used her medical knowledge to help other prisoners who were struggling with the effects of alien technology and unfamiliar environment. She discovered that the facility's automated medical systems were designed for Vorthon physiology and often missed important health indicators in other species. Her expertise became valuable for maintaining prisoner health and building trust with alien captives. The human women began to understand the scope of their situation through observation and limited communication with other prisoners. The Vorthons viewed them as research subjects rather than intelligent beings and planned to conduct various studies and experiments over the coming months. Escape seemed nearly impossible given the sophisticated security systems and isolated location. Sola Lee spent her time memorizing guard schedules and facility layouts while identifying potential weaknesses in the containment systems. She noted that the aliens followed predictable routines and showed little variation in their security procedures. Their confidence in their technology had made them somewhat careless about prisoner surveillance. Admiral Tae Sato arrived at New Busan with his full battle group and immediately began forensic analysis of the attack site. His investigators used advanced scanners to analyze energy signatures and material traces left by the alien ships. The technology was unfamiliar, but showed characteristics consistent with reports of Vorthan vessels from previous encounters with other species. The evidence clearly indicated a military operation conducted with precision and planning rather than a random raid. The aliens had specifically targeted human females within certain age ranges, while ignoring other colonists who could have been equally valuable as slaves or specimens. This suggested scientific rather than economic motives behind the abduction. Dr. Rino analyzed the alien technology residue and confirmed Admiral Sato's suspicions about Vorthan involvement. Her xenobiology expertise helped identify the specific ship configurations and probable destination based on energy signature analysis. The research pointed toward facilities in unclaimed space beyond the established trade routes. General Kai Nam coordinated the military response from Earth, while Admiral Sato gathered intelligence at New Busan. The situation was unprecedented in human experience because no alien species had ever directly targeted human civilians for capture and imprisonment. Previous conflicts had involved territorial disputes or trade disagreements, but never kidnapping and forced experimentation. Yuna Choi waited for the right moment to activate her hidden transmitter without alerting the Vorthan surveillance systems. Her military experience helped her identify periods when guard attention was focused elsewhere, and communication signals were less likely to be detected. The device had limited power and would only work for a few seconds before burning out. The opportunity came during a shift change when new guards were receiving briefings about daily operations. Yuna activated the transmitter and sent a coded, military distress signal into space, hoping it would reach human monitoring stations. The message contained her identification codes and basic information about their location and status. Back on Earth, the political implications of the attack were becoming clear, as government officials realized that humanity's peaceful expansion into space had made them appear weak to aggressive alien species. The abduction represented a direct challenge to human sovereignty and demanded a response that would establish clear boundaries for future interactions. The Vorthan Empire remained completely unaware that their routine specimen collection had triggered the largest military mobilization in human history. Commander Vextar filed routine reports while Chief Researcher Colvine prepared his initial studies of the new human subjects. Neither understood they had awakened something that would reshape the balance of power across the entire galaxy. Deep space monitoring stations began detecting unusual transmission patterns as human military forces prepared for operations beyond anything previously attempted. The 47 captured women had become the focal point for humanity's emergence as a major galactic power, whether they knew it or not. 1 week after the abduction, Yuna Choi's transmitted signal reached a human deep space monitoring station on the edge of explored territory. Communications Officer Jin Lee was conducting routine scans when the coded military distress beacon appeared on his screens with priority encryption that demanded immediate forwarding to Earth Command. The message contained identification codes that verified its authenticity and location data that made Admiral Sato's blood run cold. The signal confirmed what forensic evidence had suggested. The captured women were being held at a massive research facility in unclaimed space operated by the Vorthan Empire. Intelligence analysts worked around the clock to decode additional information, while military planners began studying star charts and preparing response options. The location was deep in hostile territory surrounded by Vorthan patrol fleets and defensive installations. Admiral Sato stood in the war room aboard his flagship, studying holographic displays of enemy positions, while General Kai Nam participated. Via secure communication link from Earth, Dr. Rino provided expert analysis of Vorthan, military capabilities and research facility designs based on classified intelligence gathered from other species who had encountered the Empire's expansion activities. The military assessment was sobering because the Vorthan Empire controlled roughly 40% of known galactic space and maintained one of the largest fleets in explored territory. Their technology was roughly equivalent to human capabilities, but their numerical advantage was overwhelming. A conventional rescue operation would require sacrificing hundreds of ships and thousands of human lives with minimal chance of success. However, Admiral Sato was not thinking about conventional military operations. The abduction of civilian women For forced experimentation had crossed a line that demanded response beyond normal rules of engagement. He had authorization from Earth Command to implement protocols that had never been used, but had been prepared for exactly this type of situation. General Kai Nam activated Total War Protocol Omega, which immediately began converting human civilian infrastructure to military production. Every shipyard in human space received orders to begin emergency construction of military vessels, using simplified designs that could be completed in days rather than months. Civilian ships were recalled for combat modification, while reserve forces were activated across all human settlements. The preparation phase lasted exactly 72 hours, during which time humanity transformed from a peaceful agricultural civilization to a fully militarized society focused on a single objective. Mining operations switched to producing military materials, while factories retooled to manufacture weapons and equipment. Even civilian freighters were fitted with basic armaments and assigned to military transport duties. Admiral Sato composed the message that would be transmitted to every known species in the galaxy, including the Vorthan Empire. The Soul Proclamation was simple and direct, with no room for misinterpretation or negotiation. Humanity demanded the immediate return of all captured civilians unharmed within 72 hours, or face total war without limitation or restriction. The message reached Vorthan Command while Emperor Kralthon was reviewing expansion plans for the next phase of imperial growth. The human communication was treated as an amusing curiosity, because no minor species had ever dared to make demands of the Empire. Imperial advisors laughed at what they considered primitive posturing from creatures who barely controlled a dozen. Star Systems. Commander Vextar received a copy of the human ultimatum while reviewing security reports from the research facility. He found the message absurd because humans had shown no military capability during the collection operation, and their peaceful colonies suggested a species more suited to farming than warfare. The deadline passed without any serious consideration. Of compliance, Chief Researcher Colvane was informed of the human message but dismissed it as irrelevant to his scientific work. The specimens were providing fascinating data about bipedal intelligence and showed remarkable adaptation to captivity. Several subjects demonstrated advanced problem-solving abilities, while others displayed leadership qualities that suggested complex social structures. Inside the research facility, Hana Kim had organized the human prisoners into an efficient communication network that shared information and maintained morale despite their desperate situation. She worked with Mira Park to monitor the health of weaker prisoners, while coordinating with Sola Lee to map facility vulnerabilities and plan potential escape scenarios. The captured women had also established contact with other alien prisoners, who provided valuable intelligence about facility operations and guard procedures. A reptilian creature from the Theta Quadrant explained that some prisoners had been held for over 3 years, while scientists conducted various studies and experiments. The information was disturbing but helped the humans understand what they were facing. Sola Lee had memorized guard rotations and identified several potential weaknesses in the security systems. The Vorthans relied heavily on automated systems and followed predictable routines that could be exploited during shift changes or maintenance periods. However, the facility's isolated location made escape nearly impossible without external assistance. Mira Park discovered that the alien medical systems were poorly calibrated for human physiology, which created opportunities for manipulation. She began documenting which medications and treatments could be modified to serve different purposes, while teaching other prisoners how to fake symptoms that might require special handling. On Earth, the 72-hour deadline approached while human military forces completed their unprecedented mobilization. Every available ship had been armed and assigned to battle groups, while civilian volunteers joined military units to fill personnel shortages. The transformation was so complete that agricultural production temporarily stopped as entire populations focused on military preparation. Foreign diplomats from other species watched human preparations with growing concern as they realized this was not the bluster of an inexperienced civilization, but the methodical preparation of a species bred for warfare. Several alien ambassadors sent urgent messages to their home governments warning that humanity's response seemed disproportionate to the perceived threat. The galactic community generally dismissed human warnings as the desperate threats of a minor species trying to intimidate the mighty Vorthan Empire. Most civilizations had accepted Vorthon dominance as a fact of galactic politics and considered any challenge to imperial authority as doomed to failure. The humans were seen as naive newcomers who would learn harsh lessons about galactic realities. Admiral Sato stood on his bridge watching countdown timers that marked the hours remaining until the ultimatum deadline. Behind him, tactical officers coordinated with thousands of human vessels while communication specialists monitored alien response frequencies. The scale of the mobilization was so vast that it required new command protocols and coordination systems, developed specifically for this operation. General Kai Nam oversaw final preparations from Earth Command, where strategic planners had developed assault scenarios that went far beyond conventional military doctrine. Human war planning had always included contingencies for total warfare, but those protocols had never been implemented. The civilian government had given military command complete authority to respond as necessary. Dr. Rin O provided final intelligence, briefings about Vorthan capabilities and psychology, while warning that the Empire had never faced total warfare from a determined opponent. Previous conflicts had involved limited territorial disputes where both sides accepted negotiated settlements. Humanity was preparing something entirely different that had no precedent in galactic history. The deadline expired exactly 72 hours after the Sol Proclamation was transmitted, with no response from the Vorthan Empire except dismissive comments from Imperial spokespersons. Emperor Kralthon had returned to his expansion planning, while his military commanders focused on routine patrol duties. The Empire considered the matter closed and forgot about human demands entirely. Admiral Sato received confirmation that no Vorthan response had been received and immediately activated combat protocols that launched the largest military operation in human history. Thousands of ships began moving toward Vorthon space, while deep strike forces prepared to attack targets. Throughout the Empire, the response would demonstrate why Earth was classified as a death world and why peaceful appearances could be deeply misleading. The 47 captured women remained unaware that their abduction had triggered humanity's emergence as a galactic superpower, but they would soon witness the consequences of threatening human civilians. The Vorthan Empire was about to learn that some species were too dangerous to treat as research specimens, regardless of their apparent technological limitations. 72 hours and 1 minute after the Sol Proclamation deadline passed, Admiral Sato gave the order that unleashed humanity's fury upon the galaxy. The first wave consisted of 3,000 military vessels, led by Captain Leo Han aboard the dreadnought Incheon's Fury, while Commander Ava Moon coordinated 50,000 civilian ships that had been converted to military service. The scale of the response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at 17 different points along the Vorthon border, simultaneously creating the appearance of a massive coordinated invasion from multiple directions. Vorthon patrol vessels found themselves facing overwhelming numbers of human ships that attacked with suicidal determination, rather than following conventional tactical doctrine. The first engagements shocked alien observers who had never seen anything like human warfare. Captain Leo Han led the assault on Vorthan outpost Kepler 7, where Imperial forces expected to easily defeat what they assumed would be a small human protest fleet. Instead, they faced a wall of human vessels that kept coming despite catastrophic losses, while broadcasting continuous demands for prisoner locations. When conventional weapons proved insufficient, human ships began ramming Vorthon vessels rather than retreating. Commander Ava Moon coordinated the civilian volunteer fleet, which included converted cargo haulers, mining ships, and even agricultural transports fitted with basic weapons. These vessels had no business in military combat, but their crews attacked Vorthan positions with desperate courage that unnerved professional alien warriors. The sight of grain freighters charging Imperial battleships became a symbol of human determination. The Vorthon military response was initially confident because their fleet outnumbered human forces by significant margins, and their technology was roughly equivalent to human capabilities. However, they quickly discovered that humans fought differently from other species, with a complete disregard for acceptable loss ratios and conventional strategic limitations. Human commanders seemed willing to sacrifice entire fleets to achieve tactical objectives. Emperor Kralthon received emergency reports from his military commanders describing unprecedented human aggression along multiple border sectors. The attacks showed no pattern that made sense according to established military doctrine, because humans were striking everywhere simultaneously, rather than focusing on strategic targets. Imperial analysts struggled to understand the logic behind such wasteful tactics. The human strategy became clear as the invasion continued because Admiral Sato was not trying to win a conventional war, but rather to demonstrate that humanity would destroy everything in its path until their people were returned safely. Human ships attacked Vorthan civilian infrastructure, military bases, and research facilities with equal intensity, while broadcasting demands for prisoner locations. Inside the research facility, the captured women could hear explosions in the distance as human forces began striking Vorthan installations throughout the sector. Hana Kim rallied the other prisoners, explaining that rescue was coming, and they needed to prepare for action when the opportunity arose. The facility's isolation was no longer protection, but had become a trap for their Vorthan captors. Chief Researcher Colvane received urgent orders to evacuate valuable specimens as human forces approached the facility's location. However, the research station was too large to evacuate quickly and contained thousands of alien prisoners who could not be easily transported. The Vorthans found themselves defending a facility that had become militarily indefensible. Sola Lee had been studying facility layouts and guard procedures for days while planning potential escape scenarios. When explosions began shaking the station, she knew the time for action was approaching and began preparing other prisoners for coordinated action. Her tactical analysis had identified several critical weaknesses that could be exploited during the chaos of battle. Mira Park used her medical knowledge to create biochemical diversions by mixing cleaning supplies and medical materials into compounds that would create smoke and confusion. She taught other prisoners how to fake injuries and medical emergencies that would distract guards and create opportunities for escape. Her preparations proved invaluable when the situation deteriorated. The human assault reached the research facility after 2 weeks of continuous fighting that had devastated Vorthan defenses throughout the sector. Admiral Jinwoo commanded the strike force assigned to rescue operations while maintaining communication with Admiral Sato, who coordinated the broader campaign. The facility was surrounded by human ships that demanded immediate prisoner release. Commander, Vextar found himself defending the research station against impossible odds while trying to maintain order among panicking scientific staff and security forces. The humans had demonstrated their willingness to destroy the entire facility rather than accept continued imprisonment of their people. Negotiations seemed pointless because human demands allowed no room for compromise. The rescue operation began when Hana Kim led the human prisoners in a coordinated escape attempt that coincided with external attacks on facility security systems. She had organized the women into teams with specific objectives, while coordinating with other alien prisoners who had agreed to join the uprising. The combination of internal and external pressure overwhelmed Vorthan defenses. Mira Park's diversions created chaos in the medical sections, while Sola Lee led groups of prisoners through mapped escape routes toward the facility's central areas. Yuna Choi used her military training to disable security systems and coordinate with approaching human forces. The organized prisoner uprising caught the Vorthans completely unprepared. The battle for the research facility lasted 6 hours while human ships systematically destroyed defensive installations and penetrated the station's armor. Admiral Jinwoo personally led boarding parties that fought through corridors filled with desperate Vorthan defenders and liberated alien prisoners. The facility's vast size made complete control difficult, but human forces gradually secured critical areas. Chief Researcher Colvane attempted to destroy research data and eliminate evidence of illegal experimentation as human forces approached his laboratories. However, Hana Kim and other prisoners had already secured much of the documentation, while Mira Park prevented the execution of alien test subjects. The Vorthans found themselves unable to complete their cover-up efforts. The rescue culminated when Admiral Jinwoo personally entered the human detention area to find Hana Kim leading a group of liberated prisoners who had secured the entire section. The 47 captured women were alive and largely unharmed, thanks to their organized resistance and careful preparation. However, they had also liberated hundreds of other alien prisoners during their escape. The broader human campaign continued beyond the research facility as Admiral Sato demonstrated that humanity would not stop fighting until the Vorthon Empire acknowledged the fundamental error of their actions. Human forces struck deeper into Imperial territory while broadcasting continuous demands for complete surrender and prisoner reparations. The scale of destruction grew daily as more human ships joined the assault. Other galactic species watched in shock as the mighty Vorthon Empire found itself unable to cope with human warfare methods that seemed to ignore conventional strategic thinking. The humans appeared willing to accept any level of casualties and economic damage rather than negotiate or compromise. Their determination was incomprehensible to civilizations that viewed warfare as a political tool. Emperor Kralthon faced reports of military disasters throughout his empire as human forces continued their relentless advance despite suffering enormous casualties. The humans showed no interest in capturing territory or negotiating terms, but simply demanded the return of their people and complete acknowledgement of imperial wrongdoing. The situation had become a threat to Imperial survival. The galactic community began to understand that they were witnessing the emergence of a new type of civilization that operated according to different rules from established galactic politics. Humanity's response to the prisoner crisis suggested a species that viewed certain provocations as requiring total, rather than proportional responses. The implications for future galactic stability were profound. The research facility fell completely, under human control as the last Vorthon defenders surrendered rather than face destruction. However, the broader campaign continued, as Admiral Sato made it clear that rescuing the prisoners was only the first step toward ensuring that no species would ever again consider humans acceptable targets for exploitation or experimentation. 3 weeks after humanity declared total war, the Vorthon Empire faced complete collapse as human forces continued their relentless advance through Imperial territory. Admiral Jin Wu stood in the liberated research facility where Hana Kim and the other rescued women had become symbols of human resilience while coordinating the liberation of thousands of alien prisoners from dozens of different species who had suffered under Vorthon experimentation. The 47 human women had not simply waited for rescue, but had organized a comprehensive uprising that freed the entire facility before human forces arrived. Hana Kim emerged as a natural leader who coordinated prisoner activities while Mira Park used her medical skills to treat injured aliens and Sola Lee mapped facility systems for maximum disruption. Their actions impressed even veteran human military officers. Yuna Choi had maintained contact with approaching human forces through her hidden transmitter and provided critical intelligence that enabled precise strikes on facility defenses. Her military experience proved invaluable for coordinating internal resistance with external assault forces. The combination of organized prisoner rebellion and professional military attack overwhelmed Vorthon security completely. The research facility liberation revealed the full scope of Vorthon crimes against galactic civilization, as human investigators discovered evidence of illegal experimentation on sentient beings from hundreds of different worlds. The documentation showed that the Empire had conducted systematic specimen collection operations for centuries while maintaining the pretense of legitimate scientific research for galactic advancement. Admiral Sato received reports that Vorthon resistance was collapsing throughout their empire as Imperial forces found themselves unable to cope with human warfare methods. The total war doctrine had proven devastatingly effective because humans continued fighting regardless of casualties, while maintaining industrial production that replaced losses faster than enemies could inflict them. Captain Leo Han reported that Vorthon commanders were beginning to surrender entire sectors rather than face human assault forces that seemed immune to conventional deterrence. The sight of converted civilian ships ramming Imperial battleships had created psychological warfare effects that no military academy had prepared alien officers to handle. Human determination appeared limitless and terrifying. Commander Ava Moon coordinated civilian volunteer fleets that had grown to include over 100,000 vessels, as human communities throughout known space contributed ships and personnel to the war effort. Agricultural worlds sent grain haulers while mining colonies provided ore carriers and construction vessels. The mobilization was so complete that normal economic activity had essentially stopped. Emperor Kralthon faced the complete dissolution of his empire as provincial governors surrendered to human forces rather than face total destruction. The imperial military had been designed to fight conventional wars against rational opponents who would negotiate when faced with unacceptable losses. Humans appeared to consider no losses unacceptable when fighting for their people. The turning point came when Admiral Sato demanded unconditional Vorthan surrender and acknowledgement of imperial war crimes against all sentient species. The ultimatum offered no negotiation or compromise but simply demanded complete capitulation and reparations for centuries of illegal activities. The Empire had 72 hours to respond before human forces resumed their advance. General Kai Nam reported from Earth that human industrial capacity had been so thoroughly converted to military production that the civilization could maintain total war indefinitely while continuously expanding their forces. The transformation demonstrated capabilities that suggested humans had been preparing for such conflicts, despite their peaceful appearance. Other species began re-evaluating everything they thought they knew about humanity. Dr. Rin O analyzed, captured Vorthan technology and documentation, while coordinating with liberated alien scientists who provided additional intelligence about imperial operations. The evidence revealed a systematic pattern of exploitation and abuse that had affected virtually every species in the galaxy. Humanity's war was becoming a liberation campaign for galactic civilization. Inside the liberated research facility, Hana, Kim established the Galactic Prisoner Liberation Organization, with support from human military command and cooperation from rescued alien prisoners. The organization's mission was to identify other illegal facilities and coordinate rescue operations for any sentient beings held against their will anywhere in the galaxy. Mira Park worked with alien medical personnel to treat prisoners who had suffered under Vorthan experimentation, while documenting evidence of medical crimes that violated every standard of civilized behavior. Her efforts helped establish medical protocols for treating victims of illegal research while building relationships between human and alien medical communities. Sola Lee used her tactical skills to analyze captured facility plans and identify similar installations throughout former Vorthan territory. Her work enabled human forces to locate and liberate dozens of additional research facilities, while ensuring that no evidence of imperial crimes was destroyed during the collapse. The Vorthan Empire's unconditional surrender came exactly 72 hours after Admiral Sato's final ultimatum, when Emperor Kralthon personally transmitted his acceptance of all human demands. The surrender included complete acknowledgement of imperial war crimes, agreement to pay reparations to all affected species, and acceptance of human oversight for the transition to new governmental structures. The galactic community reacted with shock and amazement as the mighty Vorthan Empire fell to human forces that had emerged from apparent nowhere to reshape the balance of galactic power. Species that had accepted imperial dominance for centuries suddenly found themselves free while trying to understand the implications of humanity's emergence as a major galactic civilization. Admiral Jin Wu supervised the establishment of human occupation forces throughout former Vorthan territory, while ensuring that liberated alien populations received assistance and protection. The occupation was designed to prevent imperial remnants from reorganizing, while facilitating the establishment of new governmental structures based on consent rather than conquest. The Sol Proclamation became the foundation for new galactic laws. Other species recognized that humanity's response to civilian targeting had established clear boundaries for acceptable behavior between civilizations. The principle that attacking civilians warranted total rather than proportional response was gradually accepted throughout the galaxy. Hana Kim addressed the First Galactic Liberation Council, where representatives from dozens of species gathered to coordinate efforts to locate and liberate remaining prisoners from illegal facilities throughout known space. Her speech emphasized that the campaign was not about human dominance, but about establishing basic standards of civilized behavior for all species. Dr. Yuki Zhang became humanity's first galactic ambassador when the new Galactic Council was established. To replace imperial rule with representative government, her diplomatic efforts focused on building cooperative relationships while making it clear that humanity would respond decisively to any future attempts to target human civilians for exploitation or experimentation. The research facility was converted into a memorial and educational center where visitors could learn about the consequences of treating sentient beings as research subjects. The 47 human women became honored guests who shared their experiences while working to ensure that such crimes would never be repeated anywhere in the galaxy. Human civilization found itself transformed from a peaceful agricultural society to a major galactic power whose military capabilities commanded universal respect and whose commitment to protecting civilians was absolute. The change had come at enormous cost but established humanity as a force for liberation rather than conquest throughout known space. The HFY War ended with humanity's emergence as the galaxy's primary defender of sentient rights while former imperial subjects worked to rebuild their civilizations under new principles of cooperation and mutual respect. The 47 captured women had become the catalyst for changes that would affect every species in the galaxy for generations to come. Other civilizations learned that humanity's peaceful nature should not be mistaken for weakness, and that certain actions would provoke responses that defied conventional strategic thinking. The galaxy had gained a new guardian whose memory was long and whose commitment to protecting the innocent was absolute and uncompromising.